So we're going to get right into it with God Among the Pagans. We're going to be looking specifically at Genesis 22. So Genesis 22 is a rather famous passage. It's the binding of Isaac. But here I want to kind of talk about this passage. So a lot of atheists like to bring up they like to point to this passage as a time when God commanded child sacrifice, right? He commands something immoral. How could a good and loving God command sacrifice of a child? Right? But is that all that God's doing here?
No.
Right. There's a lot more that's happening here.
Right.
So a little bit of context. So the way that pagan tribes worshipped in the ancient Near East is they would give up their most valuable possession. Right. The more valuable it was to you, the greater fealty you had to your God. What's more valuable than your child? Right? I mean, a lot of us parents, even if you're not, you know that children are extremely valuable. Right? They are very precious. You'd give your life for them. So if you were willing to give their life, then you were seen as the most devout and faithful. And the way that would happen is, as it shows in the photo here, the priest would heat up a statue of the god who had its hands positioned like this in order to hold the infant. They would heat it to the point where it started glowing, and then they would place the infant on the statue, and the infant would burn to death. And that was how child sacrifice was done. This was all over the ancient Near East where Abraham lives. That's just how things were done. So God tells Abraham to set off to the hill country of Moriah in order to complete the sacrifice. And then Moriah is actually where Jerusalem one day would be. Obviously, we are many hundreds of years before that. I want to revisit Genesis 22, 1 through 3. So after these things, God tested Abraham and said to him, "Abraham, here I am," he answered. "Take your son," he said, "your only son Isaac, whom you love. Go to the land of Moriah and offer him there as a burnt offering on one of the mountains I will tell you about." So Abraham got up early in the morning, saddled his donkey, and took with him 2 of his young men and his son Isaac. He split wood for a burnt offering and set out to go to the place God had told him about. So given the prior context of what we just discussed, when God tells Abraham to go and to sacrifice his son, this is not something that's unusual for Abraham, right? Given just what he's surrounded by. He is surrounded by the culture that says you burn your son to death to show that you love your God. So when Abraham hears this, he goes, "All right, yep, that's how it is." But it's a little bit strange, though, almost, that he is so willing, because God has said this is the son of promise, right? This is the son that's going to be your lineage. And we'll get to that a little later. Could I have one of you read Genesis 22, 4-5, please?
Then on the 3rd day Abraham lifted his eyes and saw the place afar off. And Abraham said to his young men, "Stay here with the donkey. The lad and I will go yonder and worship, and we will come back to you."
So it's a very interesting statement. Right? Abraham knows what's about to happen. Right? He knows, I'm going to burn my son to death. Yet he says, "The boy and I will come back to you." Right? We will come back to you. And so with the prior knowledge that this is the son of promise, and now Abraham's statement, "We're going to come back to you." Right? We. What do you think? Why do you think he makes that statement?
Because he serves a God who can resurrect. And so
Yes.
he knew that somehow God would bring him back to life, so it wasn't like he would actually lose him.
Yeah, that's exactly it, and that's what's in our next passage. So Hebrews 11:19, this is talking about Abraham about to sacrifice Isaac. He considered God to be able to even raise someone from the dead. As an illustration, he received him back. Abraham considers that God can raise Isaac from the dead. He knows that God is a miracle-working God. He has complete faith in him. He knows the covenant that God has made with him and that this is his child of promise. So he believes that if I go through with this and my faith is proven, God will simply raise him from the dead. As we know, it's not exactly how the story goes. All right, so let's little brief review. Abraham considers it possible that his son would be raised from the dead, and in a way he did receive his son back. At this point, Isaac is all Abraham has. Abraham's other son, Ishmael, has left with his mother Hagar. And so all of Abraham's hopes of lineage and future are here. And you see that. You see even God confirming that, right? Back in Genesis 22, I believe it's verse 2, he says, yes, take your son, your only son Isaac. Right? God is reaffirming, yes, I know this is all you have. I know what I promised you. This is going to take some faith. So if I could have, Gabby, could you read Genesis 22, 6 through 8?
So Abraham took the wood of the burnt offering and laid it on Isaac his son. And he took the fire in his hand and a knife, and the two of them went together. But Isaac spoke to Abraham his father and said, My father. And he said, Here I am, my son. Then he said, Look, the fire and the wood, but where is the lamb for burnt offering? And Abraham said, My son, God will provide for himself the lamb for a burnt offering. So the two of them went together.
Put yourself in Abraham's shoes here for a moment. Right, you're going up the mountain. It's just you and your child, and this is all you've got to be thinking about is I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. I'm going to have to do it. So you're walking up the mountain, and then you hear your child say, "Where's the sacrifice?" Right? We have the supplies, but where's the actual sacrifice? And I can't imagine that headspace. Where Abraham turns around and looks at sacrifice in his mind. But he has faith. He says, God will provide the lamb for the sacrifice. And it's a very interesting statement, right? Perhaps, Abraham considers that Isaac will be raised from the dead. Perhaps there's also a part of his mind that, thinks maybe there will be some sacrifice offered, and ultimately there is. Right? We can.
That's what I was thinking too. I mean,
Yeah.
more for that, yeah.
Yeah.
Like, there's going to be one up there, I'm not going to have to do this. I wonder if he thought, maybe I'm not. Like, I'd be walking up the mountain thinking, I'm not really going to have to sacrifice the son.
Right.
There's going to be an alternative way,
Yeah. No, for sure. It's a very. I cannot imagine the mindset. I'd be thinking the same thing. I'd be thinking, the God I serve, wouldn't have me kill my son, wouldn't have me lose my only child at this point. So, again, we can only really speculate about Abraham's headspace, but just that gut-wrenching feeling of the sacrifice, asking, where's the sacrifice? So then, Jahida, could I have you read Genesis 22, 9 and 10?
Then they came to the place of which God had told them, and Abraham built an altar there and placed the wood in order. And he bound Isaac his son and laid him on the altar upon the wood. And Abraham stretched out his hand and took the knife to slay his son.
A lot of people here like to think of Isaac as a child. They like to think of Isaac as a really young boy. He's probably maybe early teens at the oldest, and really doesn't know what's happening. That's not what Scripture says.
Yeah, I heard that roughly he was about probably 13 at this stage, I think. That's what I heard.
So, I regret to inform you, you've heard incorrectly. Isaac is about 37 at this time.
Really?
Yes, Isaac is not a young boy.
Okay.
The reasoning behind that is the next chapter. It's a little bit of math, which gross.
Right, some math, and I tried to do it before, but apparently I ain't good at math.
Well, so the next chapter states that Sarah dies shortly thereafter, like right after this happens, at the age of 127. Well, she gives birth to Isaac at 90. So he'd be 37 when this happens. So when Abraham is tying him up and binding him up for the sacrifice, Isaac knows what's happening.
Right, and he didn't fight. He's
did not
a
fight.
full-grown man.
Right, and further evidence, he's carrying wood for. No, it's not wrong, right? And he's carrying this wood up. That cannot be a light workload. right? Carrying that level of wood up a mountain to build an altar, that's a lot of weight. And so he's got to be, a pretty strapping man as well. He could definitely handle his 100-year-old father at this point. Older, he's 130. But he doesn't fight back. He knows what's happening. He knows that the culture that they live in condones this, and this is how worship is done. And so in Isaac's mind, perhaps he heard growing up, you are this child of promise. Perhaps he didn't. The scripture doesn't tell us. But in his mind, this is, okay, my father is showing his fealty. He's showing how much he loves his God, and I'm going to participate in that because that's the culture that we live in. That's what I've known all my life, and there's no reason for me to fight back against this. Which that's a different kind of headspace as well.
Yeah.
Could I have someone read 11 to 12?
But the angel of the Lord called to him from heaven and said, Abraham, Abraham. So he said, Here I am. And he said, Do not lay your hand on the lad or do anything to him. For now I know that you fear God, since you have not withheld your son, your only son, from me.
Okay, so here we kind of get into something that we will discuss in a later class, namely the identity of the angel of the Lord. But for a brief discussion, this is the second person of the Trinity. This is the pre-incarnate Christ. This is the Son. Yeah. So we know the angel is a divine person because here in verse 12, he identifies himself as God through the first person singular of me. Right? He says, You have not withheld your son from me. It would be different if the angel said, You've not withheld your son from God.
Yeah, right.
But given that Abraham is there to sacrifice his son to God, and the angel says, You've not withheld him from me, therefore he's sacrificing to the angel. So, little bit of, we won't go too deep on it, but a little bit about the angel of the Lord being the Son of God. How do we know? I will have each of you turn to one of these passages.
Now Moses was tending the flock of Jethro, his father-in-law, the priest of Midian. And he led the flock to the back of the desert and came to Horeb, the mountain of God. And the angel of the Lord appeared to him in a flame of fire from the midst of a bush. So he looked, and behold, the bush was burning with fire, but the bush was not consumed. And Moses said, I will now turn aside and see this great sight, why the bush does not burn. When the Lord saw that he turned aside to look, God called to him from the midst of the bush and said, Moses, Moses. And he said, Here I am. Then he said, Do not draw near this place. Take your sandals off your feet, for the place where you stand is holy ground. Moreover, he said, I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob. And Moses hid his face, for he was afraid to look upon God. And the Lord said, I have surely seen the oppression of my people who are in Egypt, and have heard their cry because of their taskmasters, for I know their sorrows. So I have come down to deliver them out of the land of the Egyptians, and to bring them up from that land to a good land, a good and large land, to a land flowing with milk and honey, to the place of the Canaanites, and the Hittites, and the Amorites, and the Perizzites, and the Hivites, and the Jebusites. Now therefore, behold, the cry of the children of Israel has come to me, and I have also seen the oppression with which the Egyptians oppress them. Come now, therefore, and I will send you to Pharaoh, that you may bring my people, the children of Israel, out of Egypt. But Moses said to God, Who am I that I should go to Pharaoh, and that I should bring the children of Israel out of Egypt? So he said, I will certainly be with you, and this shall be a sign to you that I have sent you. When you have brought the people out of Egypt, you shall serve God on this mountain. Then Moses said to God, Indeed, when I come to the children of Israel and say to them, The God of your fathers has sent me to you, and they say to me, What is his name? What shall I say to them? And God said to Moses, I am who I am. And he said, Thus you shall say to the children of Israel, I am has sent me to you.
Jesus said to them, Most assuredly I say to you, before Abraham was, I am. Then they took up stones to throw at him, but Jesus hid himself and went out of the temple, going through the midst of them, and so passed by.
So here in John 8, Jesus claims the divine name for himself. Right? And this is something that the Jews fully understand because they go to kill him for blasphemy. And Jesus doesn't say, whoa, guys, you're misunderstanding. I'm not claiming to be God. He just vanishes from the midst of them.
Yeah.
Right? So they fully understand that, that God, from the burning bush speaking, Jesus is claiming to be that person. And we see there in verse 2 of Exodus 3 that it is in fact the angel of the Lord who is the one in the bush. So this is just one example. There are many examples. We won't go into it today, but Christ is undeniably the angel of the Lord. So if we can flip back to Genesis 22, verses 13 and 14.
Then Abraham lifted his eyes and looked, and there behind him was a ram caught in the thicket by its thorns. So Abraham went and took the ram and offered it up for a burnt offering instead of his son. And Abraham called the name of the place, "The Lord will provide," as it is said to this day, "In the mount of the Lord it shall be provided."
And thus, the Lord did provide on that day.
He did.
But there's a small problem here. Did you catch it? Abraham answered, "God himself will provide the lamb for the burnt offering, my son." Where's the lamb? A ram is not the same thing as a lamb. They are very different animals. So was Abraham mistaken? Or is the lamb present?
In a futuristic sense, yes.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
The Lamb of God is certainly present there.
Right.
And the Lamb who will be provided as a sacrifice is indeed present.
It must be a translation thing, because mine still
Yeah,
says
mine
ram.
says. Yeah, mine still says ram too.
But if other
For-
people say instead of lamb. I don't have lamb in my book. I have
Right. The animal caught in the thicket is a ram.
Yeah.
My point is that exactly. Abraham says back in verse 8 that God will provide the lamb.
Right.
For the sacrifice.
Burnt offering. Okay, yeah, I was looking
Yeah.
at you and I'm like,
Sorry.
oh, yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
No,
No,
I get
that's
that. Yeah, no.
okay.
Yeah.
So
No, okay, that's
Yeah,
great.
yeah, that's
never,
good now.
Never
No,
saw
we get it,
that.
yeah.
Okay, hold on. Okay.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
That, yeah. Yeah, I never, and this is why it's so important to really slow down and really digest everything that you're taking in, because these small little details, man, will miss it.
Oh yeah. I've had to read this passage many times.
Mhm.
Every time I do, I find something new.
Yeah, and speaking about that, once you're done, I wanted to ask you about something I was
Go for it.
curious about. Well, no, it was in the beginning, how God referred to Isaac as Abraham's only son, and obviously we know that he had, so, why does God refer to him as his only son? Knowing that Ishmael was born to him, even though it was by Hagar. Obviously, Abraham's the father, but yet he only referred to Isaac as his only son.
Well, so Ishmael by this point has been sent away with Hagar. They're no longer in Abraham's life in any real sense.
Okay.
They've been sent out into the wilderness because Sarah becomes jealous and enraged over the birth of Ishmael by Hagar, and the attention that Ishmael is now getting. He's the firstborn of Abraham, and Sarah is like, this son of a slave is going to be the inheritant of everything I have. Right? She's upset with Abraham over something that she told him to do, and to Abraham's discredit, he shouldn't have listened, and he did. So when God calls Isaac Abraham's only son, it's because at this point Ishmael's no longer in the picture.
So it's
He's not even a
more
son.
in the sense of like a biological.
Right.
It's in a different way.
Right. It's the idea that this is the only son that you have.
Like an inheritance.
Exactly. Right.
Okay. Right.
And this is the child of promise that
Right.
I told you I would give you,
Right.
and now I'm taking that away.
Right.
Your only son, the only one through whom your lineage can possibly go at this point, in any real sense. It's all right.
No, that's okay. I'm good at tuning out.
Yeah. So Isaac is his only son in the sense that Ishmael's no longer in the picture.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, I just it stood out to me today. I'm like, why didn't he say that he had another biological? He had other biological.
And if I can have 15 through 19, please.
And the angel of the Lord called to Abraham a second time out of heaven and said, By myself I have sworn, says the Lord, because you have done this thing, and have not withheld your son, your only son. Blessing I will bless you, and multiplying I will multiply your descendants as the stars of the heaven, and as the sand which is on the seashore. And your descendants shall possess the gate of their enemies. In your seed all the nations of the earth shall be blessed, because you have obeyed my voice. So Abraham returned to his young men, and they arose and went together to Beersheba, and Abraham dwelt at Beersheba.
Okay. So, lastly, God reaffirms the covenant with Abraham, and Abraham receives his son, his only son, back. All good? Let's review then. So, Abraham has his only son, whom he gets back from the dead, as Hebrews 11:19 says, right? As an illustration, he received his son Isaac back from the dead. There is a sacrificial lamb promised. God the Son is present. This takes place in the area where Jerusalem would be, and Isaac willingly lays down his life for the sacrifice. Does that remind you of anything? It's 1400 years before Christ. There is a foretelling of exactly what Christ would do. So ultimately what God is doing here is inverting the world as we know it. From the time of Abraham to the current day, our world is all about what are you willing to give up? Are you willing to give up your family, your time, your money, your life to be what the world wants? That's how the God of this world, as 2 Corinthians 4:4 calls Satan, wants us to think. But that's not how God looks at things. The devil asks, what are you willing to give up for me? He wants to know what you are willing to do to win the favor of the world. But God says, this is what I'm willing to give up for you. I am willing to give up for you my only son as a sacrifice for you. He will willingly lay down his life. I will willingly lay down my life. We serve a God like no other.